All right, here we are, Crispin Cross of Lead, and we are going to read chapters 9, 10, and 11. In the early morning, I climbed back on the rock to watch for any hunting party that might resume its search for me. Happily, I saw none. Not entirely trusting what I saw, I spent my day in anxious idleness, watching, dozing, searching for acorns and berries for my food. Sometimes I prayed for guidance, as my mother had done, her small cross pressed between my hands. Occasionally I would say the name Crispin out loud. It was rather like a new garment that replaces an old, desired, yet not yet comfortable. I tried to guess what the priest was going to tell me about my father. In truth, I feared the worst, that he was an outlaw, perhaps a traitor, or someone exiled from the church. A person to make me even more ashamed of myself than I already was. I even wondered if that was why I had become a wolf's head, because my father had been. But what I kept pondering endlessly were the priest's revelations about my mother. Though the days seemed to last forever, night returned at last. When it became completely dark, I set out for the village and the church. Though upset, I was resolved to do as the priest had instructed. The sky was clear. A slender moon was in the sky. Nothing along the way gave me pause. But no sooner did I draw near the church than a figure rose up before me. I stopped, heart pounding. "Is that Asta's son?" came a whispered voice. Afraid to answer, I kept still. "It's me, Serdic," the voice said. Serdic was a village boy, a little older than myself. Instantly suspicious, I said, "What do you want?" "Father Quinnell told me to come," he said. "I was to say that he could not meet you." "Not meet me?" I cried. "Instead, he said you were to follow me." But where is he? And why couldn't he come?" "I don't know." "Well, why did he speak to you?" I said. I don't know that either," Serdic stammered. I stared into the dark. "Where am I to follow you?" "Along the road that leads west," said Serdic. "Father Quinnell said it's the safest way to go." "But he told me I was to go to Goodwife Peregrine's," I protested, "to meet him there." "Well, I told you, he can't." Not certain I should trust the boy, but unsure what to do, I stood where I was. Serdic moved off a few paces. "Are you coming?" he called. I need to do as I was told," I said, and set off in the direction of Peregrine's cottage. Serdic followed. Peregrine was not just the oldest person in our village. She had a special wisdom for healing, midwifery, and ancient magic. The village hag. She was a tiny, stooped woman with a dull red mark on her right cheek and wayward hairs upon her chin. It was she, no doubt, who had delivered me into this world. Like others, I looked upon her with fear and fascination. The old crone's cottage, like most other Stromford dwellings, was built with a few timbers. It had a thatched roof and daub and wattle walls. There was a space to either side of the single entryway, which had a door. One side of the space was for her animals, her cow, pigs, goose, and general storage. The other was for her living. I came through the entry full of foreboding. An open fire pit lay on Peregrine's side and gave the only light. Smoke thickened the air, making the herbs that hung from the rafters look like dangling carcasses. Over the fire sat a three-legged iron pot, in which something cooked. The food smells made my mouth water. "Who's there?" Peregrine called through the smoke, in her rasping, broken-toothed voice. "It's me, Asta's son." Is that the priest with you?" "It's Serdic." "Where's the priest? I expected him." He told me he couldn't come," said Serdic. He'd come up close behind me. She peered at the boy through the smoke. "Did he give a reason?" "None." Muttering, "Something must have happened." She looked up into my face. Her stench was strong, and I was aware of the mark on her face. "Well, are you ready to go?" she asked. "The priest said I must." "Aye, you're being hunted by many, and the steward's offering 20 shillings reward for you." 20 shillings? I cried. The amount was half of a year's wages. No one in the village had such a sum. Why should he offer so much? He wants you dead, she said. Do you know where the steward will be looking? I said, very frightened. Serdic answered, The bailiff told people he intends to go along the northern road. Then best to go south, Peregrine said to me. Are there towns or cities there? I said. I wouldn't know, the old woman said. Now draw closer, she commanded. The priest asked me to provide you with protection. I do it for him, Aster's boy, not you. I stepped forward reluctantly. She reached up and dropped a thong with a small leather pouch about my neck. Then she spoke some words I didn't understand. Eat this before you go, she said, thrusting a bowl of porridge into my hand. After putting the cross of lead into the leather pouch, I stuffed the porridge into my mouth with my fingers. Once done, I returned the bowl. And here, the old woman said, offering me a bag, is some bread. It won't take you far, but it'll take you off. As soon as I took the bag, the old woman grasped my arm with her tiny hand and pulled me to the entryway, and all but pushed me out. God be with you, Aster's son. She, too, wished me gone. Chapter 10. Don't go south, Serdic said as soon as we were outside and alone. Why not? I said, trying to push away my disquiet. It's what I told you. The steward will be looking north. Why should he have said that if he wished to keep it a secret? I think he wants you to go south, go a different way. But which way? Well, if the steward said he's looking north, go the way they least expect, west. That's what Father Quinnell said to do. But that would take me by the manor house, I said. The last place anyone would think you'd go. Though I was not sure I trusted Serdic. What he said makes sense. But I said, I want to go by the church first. Maybe Father Quinnell's there. You better hurry. With Serdic at my side, I made my way through the village. For safety's sake, I kept away from the road, skirting behind the cottages, moving quietly along the back lanes. Upon reaching the church, I knocked on the door to the priest's room. When no one answered, I went into the church proper. No one was there either. Serdic must have sensed my thoughts. Perhaps, he said, he's waiting on the other side of the river. Maybe that's why he said to go that way. Grasping at any hope, I swung around to the road and moved in a westerly direction. Serdic stayed close. Soon Lord Furnival's manor house loomed before us. Light beamed through a window upon the road that ran before it. The light illuminated the boundary cross, and I could see the mill just opposite the manor. To see the cross moved me greatly. It meant I was truly about to leave. I hesitated. It's the only way, Serdic said. He made the sign of the cross over his heart. I peered into the dark, seeing no one, but praying that Father Quinnell would be waiting for me across the river. Keep walking, Serdic said. I took but a few more steps, when a beating sound, as if someone were striking a drum, came from behind. Startled, I halted, and peered back into the darkness. There was still nothing to be seen, though the drum kept beating. Then I realized Serdic had begun to back away from me. I turned to face the boundary cross again. This time I saw shadowy forms rise up from the side of the road. It was 4 men. They lumbered across the road, blocking my way. Serdic, I called. When he made no reply, I looked around. He was gone. I swung back. I saw now that 2 of the men were armed with glaives. In another's hands I saw the shimmering glint of a sword. I turned around to see if I could retreat, only to see 4 more men approach. I had been led into a trap. Remember Father Quinnell's words about there's always a Judas lurking, a traitor? Well, it appears that was Serdic. Aster's son, came Aycliffe's voice. In the name of Lord Furnival, you're herewith charged with theft. Give way. I was too stunned to move. The boy's a wolf's head, the steward shouted. Slay him if you can. From either side, men ran forward. I ran the only way open to me, toward the mill. Reaching it, I felt about its outer walls. Finding a grip, I hoisted myself up in hope of escaping by climbing and hiding. But then a great crack exploded a hand's breadth my head. Twisting around, I saw an arrow embedded in the timbers of the mill. Faint with horror, I loosened my grip and dropped to the ground. For a moment I squatted, trying to regain my breath and wits. Hearing the men draw closer, I leaped up and scrambled around the corner of the mill. Aycliffe urged the men on. "Hurry!" He went around the mill. Hit him off! He mustn't escape!" The other side of the mill was completely dark. If I saw, I might have mine. Sure enough, the next moment my feet slipped out from under me, and I crashed into the water. Gasping for breath, I flailed around until my feet touched bottom. The water was up to my chest. I dropped into the mill race, the ditch where the river water ran to turn the mill's wheels. Knowing I was in no danger of drowning, I paused to catch my breath and listen. In the darkness, I heard the steward continually cry out, while the other men stumbled about, trying to find where I was. Deciding to use the mill race as a path, I waded forward against the flow of the water, knowing it would take me to the river. The farther I went on, the more the tumult behind me lessened. Even so, I had little doubt they were still searching. The press of the water increased. Stopping, I grasped the edge of the race, and hauled myself out, rolled over, hugging the ground. I could hear the river before me. I crawled forward, making my way down a gentle slope, until my hand touched water again. It was the river. Unable to swim, not certain of how deep the river was at this spot, I hugged the bank, too timid to pass over. I spied lights upstream. They looked like torch flares. The men were hovering near the fording place, thinking I'd try a crossing there. I had to either cross where I was or go a different way. Afraid of the river, I chose to turn and work my way back to the mill run. I slipped in, waded across, and came upon the other side. Gaining firm ground, I began to run. I went past cottages and across new-plowed fields until I reached the road. Not stopping, I rushed on. In such moonlight as there was, I made my way to the southern end of Stromford and another boundary cross. It was when I knelt down to pray that I saw a form on the ground. It took a moment for me to realize someone was lying there. My first thought was that it was a guard meant to stand against me, and that he had fallen asleep. But when the person didn't move, I drew forward, albeit timidly. It was Father Quinnell. He lay very still. "Father," I called softly. He did not answer. I knelt down, reached out, and touched him gently. "Father," I said a second time. He still did not move. I peered closer, only to see that his throat had been slit. His blood, made black by night, lay pooled upon the ground. Stifling a shriek, I knelt down, my whole body shaking. Terrified, I made a short and desperate prayer to St. Giles, imploring his blessings on the priest and on myself. That done, I ran away. God, I was certain, had completely abandoned me. So, one of the things that was talked about was the mill race and the mill. I'm trying to get a screen back, so I'm the screen. There we go. We don't need to see two of me. One's enough. So what this mill is a mill for grinding wheat. And some of you have perhaps been in one of those log rides, those flumes, they sometimes call them, at an amusement park, where you sit in a log and you're guided through a winding path of water that's carrying the boat before you come to an uphill slope thing. Well, that's what he fell into, and was working his way around to try to escape when an arrow almost got him. And back in the medieval days, they would have used water from a river and guided that water with that mill race to the wheel, the water wheel, that would turn a gear, and then there'd be a stone inside that would grind wheat. And so it was a flour mill. So that's that. So Father Quinnell has been killed. He's been murdered. His throat was cut, slit. So something's up there. Crispin, we now know his name is Crispin, is on the run, and the only person that he's trusted, Father Quinnell, has been murdered. So, wow. What's going to happen? I don't know. We'll find out later. Okay, see ya.